Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Journey to Freedom podcast, a place you can comment and listen to entrepreneurs and professionals talk authentically about their own journeys and hang out with us while we go through all things life with a focus on all the freedoms: financial, time, location, and spiritual freedom. I'm your host, Nick Allard, a former 8-figure real estate entrepreneur and best-selling author, turned inward when I realized that everything was building not on a strong foundation, and I faced a massive burnout until I encountered what someone call an awakening that I'm now sharing with you, just like our amazing guest today. I'm super, super stoked to have this man. A lot of you might already know him. He is a very public individual. He runs a tribe called GoBundance Emerge, where they create millionaires, having created over 60 millionaires so far. Jamie, I am so stoked you agreed to come out with us today. Thank you so much, dude.
I appreciate you having me, man. Thank you. Thanks. Great introduction, too. I appreciate you.
Tell us a little bit about your journey, man. We'd love to hear your story first before we get into some questions.
Yeah, no, happy to. I always like to say at 16 years old, I want to be a sportscaster. So at 21, I became a claims adjuster, kind of a natural progression, obviously, right?
I see that. Yeah.
But it was time to get practical, or at least that's what I thought. So, you abandon the dream, you abandon the thing that you think you'd love to do, and you go for the thing that's supposed to make you some money. And I was good at it. So started climbing the ranks pretty quick. I was 21 years old. It was the year 2000. By 2 or 3 years in, I had been promoted twice. I had my own office as a claims manager, and I settled in for a bit before taking a role in Boston as like a higher level manager. And then from there, I was really all in on getting to an executive level. Like that was sort of the next big step, a director level equity position with this big insurance company that rhymes with schmaggressive. I won't say the name of it. So I'm working for them year 17 after a few years of grinding out some of these lateral roles that corporate makes you do when you're not anointed as the next one. Go do this job and travel 45 weeks a year. That was while I lived in Boston. Even though your wife just had your first kid, okay, I'll do that. I'll hop on a plane every week at Logan Airport Terminal C every damn week to fly out on JetBlue. And then go take this job in this department, oversee this department that we don't even know if we want to keep it. So go for it. Well, what if you get rid of the department? Well, then, Jamie, we don't know if you have a job. And I said, yeah, all right, let's do it. And I'll make something of it. And we did, right? I did. So from there, that was enough, I guess, cred for me to get me the promotion. I take the promotion in 2017 to Michigan, moved there with my family, which is a lovely place. Nothing wrong with Michigan, but I just felt completely empty and broken after that move, almost immediately after that move. Because I realized that what I was trying to fulfill, some empty void in me, and I was grinding in these different jobs and everything, I thought was going to be filled by me achieving this goal, this job, this equity position, and I could stick with it for a while. But it was just 16-year-old me at 21 getting a degree or two off of the path that I intended to go on. And over the course of 21 years of a career, 17 to that point, that 1% move became a 30% deviation from my true and authentic path. And so I started down the path of real estate. That moved into building community. I had a brand called Multifamily and More, which was a networking group, and we had different chapters around the country, which was a lot of fun. And I realized I really enjoy the interactive part of real estate more than I do the actual real estate. So while real estate's still there and present, my role in it is more around, we talked about this once before, about the connector energy and more on the capital raising marketing. And I was able to build a mastermind in community with, or in partnership with the community I belong to called GoBundance, which, as you mentioned, has produced a whole bunch of people achieving their goals of becoming millionaires and moving up kind of into the higher levels of GoBundance membership, which is cool.
Awesome. All right. Well, you mentioned true and authentic self, Jamie. So yeah. What about the some aggressive company was not part of your true and authentic self, and what made you realize that?
So Progressive's a great company. Schmaggressive is a great company. Honestly, I'd invest in it. It's a great company to work for. It's funny. Like when you leave a company, there's a little bit of like F you in it, no doubt. But really, it's a great company. I was in a role that required you to be analytical, really, at the end of the day. It required you to be worried about things like when, Chevy fenders go up by $7 on average over a quarter, and you got to dig in and figure out why. And that inspires me 0%. I enjoyed managing my team. I enjoyed one-to-one coaching with people that I'm trying to develop into leadership roles. Like I enjoyed the interactive part of it, but what the job was just never truly me. The things I was good at were anything I had to do interpersonally, but not that stuff. So the company itself wasn't necessarily misaligned with me. By virtue of the name, it's always moving forward, always changing. And I like that. I could shift roles even within the level, right? Even as an executive, I would shift departments every couple of years. So it was always fresh and new. But I'll be honest, there was a point at which I thought, man, it's 65 or 70. And, my kids now are 8 and 5. My kids are a little older, maybe it's 60, whatever. And I'm retired, let's say. And somebody asks my kid at a graduation party, what did your dad do? Oh, his life's work? Insurance claims. It just didn't land for me, right? It was completely different than, hey, I want to be an NFL sportscaster or broadcaster or whatever. And the NFL broadcaster, while that medium may not have been the thing that I wanted, the core of why I wanted it is what has existed this whole time. And I think I've leaned more into the core of who I am by leaving the job and going into everything else that I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because you and I have that in common, including location wise. I think we talked about it yesterday, but I had no idea. Boston, Woburn, Billerica, like these are all where I grew up. And I worked for Mellon Bank in Boston and Everett. And for that itself, very similar to you, we were extremely nervous when the overnight rate went up by like 10 BPS, right? Yeah. And I had to be the guy behind the cube. They had me working 40, then 50, then 60 hours a week. And I learned so much from my boss there, right? Because just like you, I got promoted and oversaw 3 people, and then 6 people, and then 10 people, and then. But what it ultimately came to is, and my boss was amazing. My manager was, how do we find opportunity? Let's talk about really, grabbing in the opportunity and leaning in when we feel like, resistance. But I remember seeing my boss's boss's boss, right, in his big office over there. And he was like taking all of the heat from all the clients. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, like that's my track 10 years from now. Like I would move from this cube to the big cube to that office to that big office, and I would still have all this fucking stress. Yeah. And I was like, all right, I get it. And same as you. And you're right. I never even thought about it. Like if my kids ask me, what does dad do for a living? Oh, he, takes in wires. Like that's stupid.
The further I went up, the less autonomy I had. In fact, you talk about burnout. The recipe for burnout I've learned, and maybe you'll correct me on this because you're the expert here, is high degree of responsibility and low degree of autonomy. My company got so big that everything was a process. My job was simply to ensure execution on a predefined process. But for a creative like me to step outside the bounds of that or see a better way, no autonomy, but I was expected that everything executed, whether the process was followed or not, I needed to execute and get results. So high degree of responsibility, low degree of autonomy. And that only got more and more unless you were the CEO. So I didn't want to go through the next 3 levels to be a larger stooge, with less autonomy and more responsibility. It would just be a larger recipe for burnout.
Oh, it's amazing you had that foresight. Like that's really, really good.
Well, but it's like what you said though. Like you got to look at your boss and say, is that what I want? Like I did. I wanted, before I got the job, that my God, it would be amazing to be in that director chair, that executive level. And then I got, I'm like, this sucks, So then I'm looking at my boss, like, I don't want her job. I even hate her, love her, whatever. I don't want that job. That job sucks. So at that point, you got to make a decision. Am I just is this it? 41, 42? Like, nothing more for this life. I just do this shit for the rest of it. I couldn't do it.
That's awesome. All right.
By the way, sorry if I'm cursing. Should I not be cursing?
We're from Boston. No, of course you should fucking curse. This is fantastic. Oh, beautiful. Journey to Freedom. It requires cursing. You have to.
Well, you might be more Lexington, Boston, I was thinking,
That's the high end around here. Everyone.
Concord, Lexington. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. No, this is good. So you moved out to get the director's position. You find out you were like all set with this. And then what brought you from there into real estate?
I guess it was like the most, again, I've never said it this way, but I think about it. Like I went from teenager dreamer to practical 21 and then built a life that required practicality, right? Mortgage, wife, kids, all of that stuff. So at the apex of practicality, now I'm going to make an impractical move. So I guess in some way going from like, 100 on the scale of practicality to like 7, which would be, I'm going to be a podcaster, at least in my mind, was just too big a leap. But real estate investing sounded practical. Like, well, that makes sense. You know what I mean? So like that takes me
Yeah.
from 100 to like a 96. I can explain it to my friends. Like they all get it. Like it makes sense or whatever. So that was it. And I reread Rich Dad, Poor Dad somewhere in this time. I reread it. I read it at 22. Nice story, or 24. I reread it in my late 30s and it was like, ah, shit, this is now I get it. Passive income and investing in assets, not liabilities. Like, there. So that just kind of clicked with me. And then real estate became, bigger pockets, all the stuff people do. Like, it just became like, wow, this is, like $100 a door, like all these things just became like, the dream. So it was the most practical step I could think of to replace a $400,000 salary.
Yeah, beautiful. I still, and even now, even through my burnout phase, which was with my real estate company for 20 years, I still feel real estate is the fastest and quickest way to wealth. Would you agree?
Wealth. Yes.
Yeah.
Not income, but wealth. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. So let's talk about your transition, right, from that corporate into the real estate space. And as you went into that real estate space, um, and I don't know this for a fact, but I know a lot of people, now you are in charge of your entire schedule. And a lot of people might have had some challenges there, but I want to know kind of deeper on that. Like when you shifted in, what were some of your challenges with that? But also, did you have any family challenges as you kind of went into that space?
When you say go into the space, just to be clear, you mean while I had my job, but was going down the path, or like when I quit?
So when you quit now, so you're quitting
Got it.
you made the decision, I'm getting out of
Yep.
corporate,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
and how was that transition? Yeah.
Yeah, to be clear, so real estate was like I had built like a 40 unit portfolio partnered. So you have to add up the units or whatever, but JV, full JV, no syndication at that point. So I built that up, and I wasn't taking cash flow, but I looked at it like, you know what, I could take about $4,000 a month. I think I could take about $4,000 a month out of everything. We had a couple duplexes. We had a 16. I was one partner, then a 22 and whatever. So I think I could take about $4,000 a month. And then I looked at what I had saved, and I had built a merge, and a merge was the business that I saw having potential for income. And the combination of those three things, 120 in the bank, 4,000 a month, which for some reason I thought was going to be enough to ramen noodle it, but it's not. And then thirdly, a belief in what I'm building with GoBundance to merge that business, that it could be something. It was like, I got a year. I got a year of runway at least here that I can build this thing. So the decision to leave was with all of those variables in mind. But it's hilarious what you just said. Like I taking it a step back for a moment, like when people get into real estate or want to get into real estate, and the question is asked, like, what's the best way to start or whatever, I always say, buy something. Buy something. Like, I don't mean anything. Like, write down some numbers, look at it. Does it make sense? And buy it. And understand that when you do, you're probably going to learn a bunch of shit on that property, meaning you're going to lose money, break even, whatever. But you don't know until you own it. Same thing with having kids, right? Like I didn't know what it meant to not sleep, even though everybody told me that, until I had my kids. Like you can't simulate that. You can't simulate not sleeping and then like, he's still here tomorrow, right? Like he's just, it doesn't stop. I can't give him back. And then the second one, holy shit. And it's the same thing when you quit your job. Everybody thinks, and maybe you did, so tell me, because you'd be the first one, to be honest with you. Everybody thinks that like, oh, okay, I have a job and I built my side hustle. I'm doing wax on, wax off here. I built my side hustle or my real estate portfolio or whatever. I know exactly how I'm going to spend my time when I quit. And then you quit. And that first year, man, like I woke up, I answered emails, I went to bed, some money. I don't know what the hell I was doing for a year. And then after like a year, I started to say like, you know what, maybe I should get up and go to the gym early, like I used to when I had my job, and then, jump into the office and do things. Maybe I should make some to-do lists for the day, or, hire an assistant or whatever, right? Like the first year was just figuring it out, like you do as a parent, like you do as an investor. Like, I don't think anyone can just jump out of their job. And I'm really curious to hear your answer, and have like, I got it all figured out going forward, even though you have a business, you have a structure. So I'll ask you that, but I'll answer your question because I haven't done that yet. What was it like? So I had no structure. I quit and thought it would reveal itself, or I had a sense of it. And I probably did a little like, let me just piss off for a while because I don't have this 40-hour-a-week job anymore, 50-hour-a-week job anymore. And like, I'm just going to, I could go to the gym at 11 o'clock because I can, right? And do whatever the hell I want. So I spent some time doing that, but it just took me a while to figure out.
But I'm curious. So in your pursuit of this new life for yourself, you did have a wife, you did have kids at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were they? What were they supportive? Were they, scared? Like, what was their role in all this when you're doing all this?
Kids were too young. So this was 3 years ago. So they would have been 5 and 2. So they would have been maybe 6 and 3, somewhere in that range. Too young to really care, to be honest with you. In fact, I remember a moment where I said to my oldest son in COVID, I'm working from home. Hey, buddy, he's 5. Like, you just remember, you could do anything you want. Don't settle. And then I walked into my office and settled, right, for the job that I had. So I remember that moment as I was considering quitting. Like, that was one of those little like things along the way, like one more check for quit, right? But my wife was actually overly supportive, too supportive. In fact, it made me uncomfortable. Like I said, I went away in February. And on the drive down, my wife and kids flew down to Florida like the 1st or 2nd of February, very comfortably. And I drove with the dogs for 24 hours from Michigan to Florida, and toys in the van and all that shit. But it gave me a lot of time to think and get clear and have a sense of like, you know what, I think I'm going to leave my job. I think I'm going to quit. This is, I think when I get there, like when I come back. So when I got to Florida and talking to my wife about it, she's like, okay, cool. I'm like, okay, well, you're on board. So I kind of went with that. And then like 3 days before, I was good all the way up to like 3 days before. And she was too cool about it. So I finally I'm like, I need you to worry here. She's like, okay. She's like, look, she grew up in the Dominican Republic. She grew up with nothing. She's like, listen, I mean, really, what's the worst case here? Like, really? Like, you got to go get a job. I got to get a job. I can make 50, 60, 70,000 a year. You can make at least that. We have to downgrade our lifestyle. Maybe we have to sell the house. Maybe we have to get an apartment, but we're together. I'd rather we're just happy, So she was too supportive. But when she finally like put that perspective around it, it was like, okay, game on, let's go. So she was unbelievable. My kids, they, not aware at that time.
Oh, wow. No, that's good that your wife was supportive. Tell me, what was like your first struggle, if you will, as you went into this?
First struggle, it kind of goes back to the point you made about overdoing it in the first year. So I did things the way I wanted to, but I overdid it. An example of that would be, so I leave this job, 50, 60 hours. And keep in mind, I have my side hustles that I'm doing all at the same time. Like, nothing really started after I left other than talking to potential GoBundance members about joining GoBundance. Everything else happened before I left. So I'm doing all of that and already not attentive to my family. My wife's supportive because she knows I'm building something. So then I quit. And this GoBundance opportunity comes up, and it's like, wow, I can make 10, 15, 20 grand a month with not a lot of hours spent on the phone. But I felt the need to go to everything then and be attentive to everything other than my family in order for that income to keep coming in. So I remember like 3 months after I left, I had traveled like 8 weeks over the course of like 3 months or something like that. It was a lot. Like, I got to go to this Bitcoin conference with GoBundance. I got to go to do this. I got to go to do that. And my wife checked me. She's like, you left this big job and we see you less than we did, even though you had job and side hustle and all this stuff. She's like, it's ridiculous. So we went through a tough period because while she checked me, it's not as if I was like, oh, you're right, I'll stop. It was like, nah, this is the season. This is what I got to do. I got to, push and whatever. And it culminated at one point, this is a little later on, where I have this partner, Mark Henteman, who's a Family Guy writer. We talked about him on a different discussion. And he calls me on like a Tuesday. This is after I'm down here. He calls me on a Tuesday and says, hey, my wife can't make it to Seth MacFarlane's birthday party on Saturday. Any chance you want to come to LA in 4 days from the Dominican Republic and hang out with Seth MacFarlane? I'm like, yes. So I booked it. My wife had a family party planned for Saturday. My logic was, hey, we can have that anytime. There's not many times we're going to go to Seth MacFarlane's birthday party. But it really, really bothered her. And I underestimated it. And that was probably like the last straw for her with me. Like, enough is enough. Not that you can't travel, but like, you've got to respect what we're doing, what I'm doing. You can't just pick up and go because it's good for Jamie when the family has plans. So that reprioritization of family is like, I'm 3 years in and I'm just finally, I feel like, getting to a place where it's like, okay, all right, you know what, I'm okay. Family is the priority. So that was probably the biggie, is I just lost sight of the fact that the reason I left was to be a more balanced, happier individual, time with family. And then I went the exact opposite way for a period of time. Yeah, that's one big challenge. for me at that point, next phase was, all right, the core of what I do and what I own and the equity I have truly is in GoBundance Emerge. So I've got to figure out a way to be like, yeah, okay, it's nice to earn this income and do all these things that I'm doing over here, but I got to get back to this core machine that I believed in when I left to build it to what I believed it could be. So for me, that meant first fumbling around and stumbling and coming up with different names for the community and taking these poor members through like different iterations of my crazy brain. And then eventually I hired a rock star operator, the who, not how thing, right? So in that time, in the last year and a half or so of this 3 years that I've been out of the job, almost 3 years that I've been out of the job, I've been really focused on the who versus the how. And the operator I brought in truly allowed me to spend less time on Emerge, be more profitable, and earn more top line revenue, plus give a better member experience to the members. Or maybe that's the first thing. That's the reason why it all worked, was because of his ability to structure it in such a way that it operated despite me, as opposed to operating because of me in some crazy way. So Emerge became my core focus for that. Within about a year, I got kind of regrounded on I got to build Emerge, and I'm still building it, but I've got other plans going forward here as well.
Tell me what kind of time do you spend? What do you do to help coach? What do you do for any of that stuff with him?
With my kids,
Yeah,
my older kid in particular, I'm trying to make them behave. I've been trying to make them behave in a way that feels like it's like appropriate in my mind, or like no way my father would let me get away with that type of mindset. And what I'm learning about my kids is like when they go out somewhere, they go to school, they go to a restaurant, whatever, they're incredible. They're incredible. When they get home, they're putting their heads through concrete. It's insane. But I'm embracing and learning like that they need that release. And if they're doing it in an environment at home with me and my wife that makes them feel safe, that I need to cultivate that and continue to allow for that. So I'm trying not to battle them as much on things. Yeah. Bedtime's an example. To get them to go up to bed starts with, all right, guys, and ends with get upstairs, right? Like it accelerates quickly. So instead, we now play a game. I do a little trivia game. I ask them each a question, and then I pick a spot on the floor between where they are and like the staircase. Like if they answer the question right, they get to move up to that spot. And then I'm on the staircase. They get to go up 4 steps. And like there's like 6, 7 questions, and they move forward until they're in the bedroom without fighting them, and they get in the shower or whatever. So the coaching or whatever is really like allowing them to be kids. Because I think you, me, and most of us by age 11, 12 is when our parents, our teachers, our guidance counselors tell us that we've got to start thinking practically. You know, you grew a certain way. You're not going to be that NBA player you thought you were going to be at 8 or whatever. And we just lose connection with that childlike enthusiasm and those childlike goals around 12 years old. And I'm really just trying to make sure I don't take that away from my kids to the extent I can. I'll traumatize them some other way, but not with that.
That's actually usually how I end that is where our goal is to actually mess up our kids the way we were messed up, right? We just don't know how. We're doing it in another direction.
100%. So, but that's it. Yeah. I wouldn't say like coaching, but like, it's just, how do I allow these kids to be kids as long as they possibly can so that they, like the Grant Cardone thing, man, like that guy's a kid. Not in like the way he acts, but the way he thinks and dreams. Like he sounds like a 7-year-old. I'm going to have $50 million a month. It would be like walking up to your kid and they say, I'm going to be an astronaut and go to the moon. You'd be like, oh, that's so sweet. That's cute. That's what Grant Cardone sounds like. He just never allowed himself to succumb to this like adulthood from age 12 to 23 or 40 or whatever, and just kept dreaming. Gary Vee, like anybody that we look at is like the uber entrepreneur. They have always kept that kid-like goal in their mind, and they keep making it bigger. They don't care what other people think. And I want to maintain that for my kids. Yeah. That's my biggest goal.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, there's a big piece of that now with people, our age or 40s and up, when we lose that inner child, right? When we go into the practicality too soon, or there's a trauma or something that takes that away, we're now having to go back, right? And have relive things in our childhood just to bring that little piece of us back so that we're whole again. Right. And it's a big piece of what we do at Life Unlimited. And it's difficult to, it sounds ridiculous, but at the same time, people don't know what they don't know until they're already in a place where they're realizing that, life is not what they ever thought it should be.
Yeah.
It's only when they hit like a horrible place that they realize, oh shit, something's missing. And
That
maybe
was 40 for me. Yeah, that was literally around the age of 40 for me. It was like, wait a minute, what happened? Where am I? How did I get here? Right? Like, I'm not the kid that used to play fake wrestling in my bedroom by myself when like I was wrestling the Ultimate Warrior. Like, where'd that kid go? Like, why am I, So yeah, I'm with you.
God rest Ultimate Warrior, man, my
I
favorite
know,
dude.
I know. It's my favorite of all time. My favorite.
Got my picture taken with Hulk Hogan though at one of my last masterminds. That was pretty sweet. So
That is cool. That is cool. Yeah.
all right, we're gonna hit. I want to. Well, before I hit the last couple questions here, let me. So where you're at now, where do you think? And I use struggles, and I want you to know this. I use struggles. I use journeys. I use that sort of lessons. I think people really resonate, right, with
Yeah.
people who go through shit that they don't just doesn't just appear. It doesn't just. It can just manifest, right? But a lot of people have to go through certain lessons before they attract what they need to attract, right?
Mhm.
So for like you in the last year or so, right? Has there been like a really cool lesson that you'd be willing to share with us?
Yeah.
Whether it's personal, professional, whatever it might be.
Yeah. So, the reality of my situations that I've left my job is that I've thrived. That's the reality. If you're just looking at it from a purely practical perspective, a lot of bobs in the water, but I've thrived and I could get less. I risk burnout because of too many bobs in the water, but internally, there's a deep-seated fear that this house of cards is about to fall at any point. Shit, I overspent. Oh fuck, I didn't take care of that thing. I had a I just recently resolved. I had a fine from the IRS on an LLC filing. I don't even know what the hell it was. And dude, it put me into like weeks of sleepless nights, fear, like I'm going to jail. And I didn't even know how much the fine, nothing. But I wouldn't make the call for some reason. I wouldn't call. You know what it was? It was $2,000. I paid it. I was like, how do I pay this? Like, oh, just go to this website. So that's it. Paid. Weeks of sleepless nights over this shit. I create for myself a like an alternative reality that requires in some space in my mind that I have to rock bottom. I've gotta have some massive failing in order for me to have success. So while things are working, I go through this process of internal and probably external self-sabotage on things working as optimally as they can because it's in here and I don't sleep. I wake up at 3 a.m. panicked over something that's not happened or doesn't even realistically stand a chance of happening. So I say that because I think no matter what, you have a W-2, you don't have a W-2, you're an entrepreneur, you're a real estate investor, whatever. Like there's always going to be stress. And that's the stress for me is like it's too good. Life's too good. And something's going to fall apart. Like outwardly you present it like, look at me, Dominican Republic, check out this beach photo. You're crushing it, all of that. And I pump the brakes with people. Like it looks good. There's a lot of stress in there. There's a lot of whatever in there. So anyway, I've got to be able to build a bigger nest egg or a bigger buffer, right? With our savings or whatever. And like, this person wants my time. Fuck them. Do they not understand how important I am? Essentially is what my ego was saying. So I go into this scarcity mode and like, and then at some point, I don't know what it was. It was just something that said, you know what? Like, it's okay. Put it down. Like, why don't you, instead of assuming the worst of somebody's intentions because the way they may have been a little too direct in how they asked for your time, why not just reply to them? Hey, I'm so sorry. I wish I could, but what can I help with? Just DM me or whatever, those sorts of things. So the lesson for me was I don't need to crash and burn. I don't need to crash and burn in order to have success. There's going to be failure along the way, but I don't need to crash and burn. I saw a documentary. I'll explain in a second that really cemented this for me. I don't need to crash and burn. And two, if I stay in give mode, even if it feels like the income or the thing that I want to feel secure isn't there, like this discussion will not, I don't see a benefit to me in any way, financially or fulfillment wise or whatever, but there's a benefit to this other person. Let me do that for them and not ask for anything, not worry about getting anything in return. And just being in that mindset generates the bigger returns. What we talked about yesterday, when you approach a capital raising call from an education standpoint, you tend to raise more capital. When you approach it from I got to close this person standpoint, you raise less capital. So it's the same kind of abundance mindset. Very quickly, the Beckham Netflix documentary. If you watch that documentary, it's 3-4 episodes. Like, it is possible to be really good looking, which I'm not, but he is really good looking, the top of your profession, have both parents alive, kids that are well adjusted, a marriage that's lasted 20 some years, be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, buy a Miami MLS franchise, bring in the biggest player in the world in Lionel Messi, right, to play for them. It is possible to be up and to the right in the zone, if you will, for the entirety of your life. Understanding that there was a cheating scandal in there, that did he or did he not cheat on his wife? He had death threats when he got kicked out of the England game. Like, there's bumps, right? But he didn't need to go bankrupt or be addicted. Like, for some reason in my mind, I create this narrative that has to happen. Like the worst of the worst for me to have success. That's honestly, my biggest struggle. Nothing outwardly is going wrong. It's all good. But internally, I'm a fucking mess. And it wakes me up in the middle of the night with insane worry about, am I able to maintain this? So
in your life, with knowing what that is, that internal struggle that you have, where do you, like, there's always the other shoe, right? Where's the other shoe going to drop, right? And what are you doing, or what do you think you can do to kind of work on that piece of it, where you can just sort of live in more peace than in that internal struggle?
Oh my God, it boils down to me to procrastination. Mel Robbins has her 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing. I've been using that lately. Like, again, faced with calling about that stupid fine. Like,
explain that to the listeners. Yeah.
It's very simple. It's just like, when you're faced with something that you don't really want to do, you do. I mean, instantly you build it up. Like, in your mind, it becomes like, okay, let me grab something to drink, and then I'll come back and do it. Oh, while I'm getting that thing to drink, I'm scrolling my Instagram, and then all of a sudden, oh, my wife called, or oh, look at this text. It's gone. Whatever you were going to do is gone. And it's not like I'm perfect at this, but instead of all that, you sit there and you go, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, do it. So for me, that was like, hit the dial button. Number was in, right? The number was in the phone. Dial. Now it's dialing. So somebody's going to pick up, and I'm going to have to address it, whatever happens on the other end for that particular instance. Or even just sitting down and doing your text is a pain in the ass. So like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, dive into it, whatever it is, organize your Dropbox, whatever the hell you do. So that has been the biggest thing for me, is how do I avoid procrastination as much as I can, knowing that I'll never fully. I mean, I think we all, maybe you're the greatest at it, I don't know, but I think we all procrastinate to some extent.
Yeah.
On things that are way more important. And if you knew what I'm procrastinating, I'd be like, what's wrong with you? And I might say the same to you, but the point is, like, avoiding procrastination is what I've learned to avoid stress. Like, dude, I slept really well the night, or it was better than I had recently, the night that I paid that stupid fine that I was afraid I was going to go to jail over, So
yeah,
that's that.
That's beautiful. I'm going to ask you this question because it's a cool question. I like it. And I always am curious of people's answers to this. And I think I stole this from Tim Ferriss back in the day. What's been the coolest purchase you made in last 12 months under $100?
Oof, that has been on Ferriss. That's a good one, though. Coolest purchase I've made in the last 12 months under $100. The changes cards. So these changes cards, okay?
Ooh.
Changes. It's made by, I have a thing here, right here. Changes cards by Michael Dietrich Chastain. These are like $20. So at that event is where I use these, but there's each letter stands for something. Like C is cognition, A is action, H is something. But anyway, you choose a category. So let's say we choose cognition. Like, you're in a group setting, right? You're at a mastermind. So you sit at a table, there's this deck of cards, you tell her, right, choose a category so cognition, and then there's a question. What has been your most important recent thought? And so you share the answer to that question to this group at a table, and it takes you from, hey, how are you? Where are you from? How was your flight? Those surfacey level questions takes you down to a deeper question, which then therefore allows you to bond with somebody that's like-minded and affect change. So these were $20. It's my other answer.
That's a good one. I like that a lot, dude. That's fantastic. What is something that you're super stoked about right now, Jamie? What's your next big project that you're working on?
It's honestly, it's the growth of the personal brand on the I'm sorry, growth of the podcast, I should say. The podcast level of guest has gone up significantly lately, and we're attracting cooler and cooler guests to it, which is really neat. You can find it on YouTube it's youtube.com/@GoBundance. It's the GoBundance sponsors it, so we put it on their media platform. But yeah, it's just great interviews. I hope I conduct them. I should I hope they're great. Great interviews with really, really cool people, just broad range, wide range. Think Diary of a CEO or Chris Williamson, any of those, kind of the same format. So really cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Is that the best way for people to reach you to, Jamie? Or you want them to hit your Instagram, or what would you like?
Instagram is best to reach me at the Jamie Gruber. You can DM me. I'm active there. And then, yeah, always appreciate a follow on the podcast. I'm sorry, a subscription on the podcast. So.
All right. That is awesome. Jamie, thank you so much for your time today, dude. This was like really good. You went deep as I knew you would. Yeah, fellow Bill Rickian, Woburn, Boston guy. I appreciate that too.
Right.
Now talking to Grant Cardone. Who thought Grant Cardone would let somebody up for the Northeast step down where he is? That's crazy.
True. That's true.
All right, everybody. I want to thank you so much for taking part in another episode of the Journey to Freedom podcast. We bring as much value as we can by sharing authentic and real life stories by other entrepreneurs and people on their journeys. So, Jamie Gruber, salute you, sir. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you also having us discuss burnout with your people as well. I'm going to talk to Grant Cardone about that in about a month. I'm sure he's going to have me on his phone call. So that'd be fantastic. Be sure, folks, to like and subscribe, the buttons to be notified when we have new podcasts that are releasing. And you can head on over to nickallerwood.com for all the episodes and to look into REI Accelerated and the Life Unlimited communities. Till next time, thanks for listening, and be on your journey authentically.